Hey, it's Doug with Blanca back at the CCM Cafe. If you did not have opportunity to catch your last visit with Christian Johnson, you can find that on the CCM Magazine YouTube channel. So welcome back to the cafe.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're heading into National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Woo, woo.
And I was trying to find out, good research. You're supposed to research someone that you're interviewing, and then the interwebs told me that
What did it tell you?
It said you were born in Puerto Rico.
It lied to you, Doug.
See, kids, don't trust the interwebs. So what's the truth?
The truth is, I am of Puerto Rican descent. My family is from Puerto Rico, but I was born in New York, so I'm a New Yorican.
A New Yorican.
A New Yorican.
So what does it mean for this Heritage Month? What does it mean to have two amazing cultures to embrace?
I love it. I love that we get to highlight the Hispanic culture. It's such a huge part of my life. I think even though I was born here in the States, there's just fundamental things. I think anyone can relate when you have maybe family that is from other countries, that there's things that you take on that even though you live here in the States, it's like, this is a part of who I am, part of my roots, part of my family. And so it's always so nice to be able to celebrate that. And kind of, I think for me, it's been a journey over the last 2 to 3 years. I don't know. We talked about this, I think, a bit in the last interview, but I lost both of my parents. And so it has so much more significance to me because I feel like my Hispanic roots is a part of who they were and a part of me. And so it connects me to them in a really special way. So I've gone on a journey over the last 3 years just to really dig deep, go back to Puerto Rico, see where they grew up, find more information about like what makes Blanca who she is. And so I feel super proud to be a Latina from Puerto Rico.
Ooh, I won't even try to mimic that. So I know that you had said earlier kind of like you weren't as reticent to embrace like singing in another language, but it sounds like that's no longer the case.
Yes. So that was one of the biggest pieces. It's like my family would always be like, but when are you going to sing in Spanish? Like it would be such a blessing to hear these songs in our kind of like our heart language. And I think because I felt not embarrassed, but I didn't want to do it an injustice. That I was like, no, I don't know if I should try that. I feel like I would be an embarrassment to the Latino culture. But I just embraced it, and I've learned, and I've picked up more, and I've done interviews in Spanish. And please, let's not do that today.
Oh no.
Okay. But now singing in Spanish, it feels like just another piece of like what I was, my purpose, like what I'm made to do. Because it really does feel like I'm creating almost like a bridge to create music and encouragement and hope and bring it to my people,
Yeah.
So it's been an awesome experience to be able to do that.
Well, one of the fun parts about culture is, of course, food. So what is the most amazing part of what you love to embrace from that side of the family?
Oh, man. My mom was an incredible cook, and it takes from my grandmother. How my mom and my dad met was my grandmother was the cook for my dad's family's company. So they owned a garbage company, and my mom used to cook. My grandmother used to cook for the employees, and my mom would help her. So food is a big piece of my family, and I love to eat. So I would say culture, specifically in the Spanish culture, food is like such a part of who we are. As Puerto Rican culture, we love arroz con gandules or habichuela, chuleta, lechon, pasteles. So
I don't even know what that is, but it sounds good.
you gotta try it.
Well, one way to segue from food into music is, of course, everybody loves, at times, if you go to fast food, you supersize because you want those bigger portions. And so we've got the Heartbreak and the Healer, I would call it supersized, like 22 tracks, like that's massive.
Yes, I've never done this before, but it feels like this is the way it should be done. Because when you start working on an album, a lot of people don't know the process. Like right now, I'm going into the writing process, and I might get 30 songs out of this experience of going writing and trying to figure out what I want to write about. But then what happens to all those other songs? Like, they're not bad. You just got to pick the top 12 and make them work. So I'm very, very excited that for the first time, I'm doing a deluxe album of the Heartbreak and the Healing. And we're adding songs that didn't make the cut, but are still amazing songs. And then adding even some of the other languages that I've gotten to record in. I did a song in Portuguese and a song in Spanish. And so those would be added to this deluxe album.
Awesome. Awesome. And artists, you get to work with a couple of different artists on the projects. Can we talk about that?
Yes. Oh, man. Where do I even begin? I think some of my top experiences have been getting to work with these artists on my album. Let's start with Tauren. I'm a huge Tauren Wells fan. We started kind of in the same boat. I was in a group called the Group One Crew, and he was in a group called Royal Taylor. And we toured together with Britt Nicole. This was back in the day. And we just became fans of each other's music. And so seeing all the success that he's had, how he stayed true to his sound, and like he just brings something so cool to our industry. And so I got to feature him on one of the songs. I showed him my album. I actually went to his concert. I'm from Orlando, Florida. Went to his concert, showed him some of the songs that hadn't been released yet from the album. And then, threw the question in, like, if I asked, would you join me on one of these songs? And he said yes. So here we are. Something Better featuring Tauren Wells is definitely a top. And then I think a big one that has to be mentioned is Jekalyn Carr. So Jekalyn is a powerhouse. She's a top female in the gospel industry. And I had this big vision of trying to connect women within our culture, right? But we don't really do things together. Like the gospel industry, the Spanish industry, the CCM industry, we don't really get to join hands per se. And so I had a song that had a little bit of a gospel flair. And I thought, how amazing would it be? She's like 25 years old and just killing it. I'm so inspired by her. And I also reached out to her on Instagram. And I was like, I have this song. I don't know if you'd be into it, but let me know. And she said yes. And we've become super good friends since that experience. But New Day is definitely a top song on my album that I love personally.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And social media, I guess, you just, back in the day, we didn't have Instagram. So I'm like, I just reached out to her on Instagram on social media and she connected. It's like.
How would you do it back in the day? Was it like you send a bird?
Yeah, you would have to, you send a scroll. You write it on a scroll. So let's talk about being a mom.
Yes. Oh, my favorite. I have a son. He just turned 10, which is wild. How do I have a 10-year-old? I don't even know, but I do, guys. His name is London, and he's my pride and joy. I feel like it's been such a journey getting to see my little baby grow up. And I feel like he just crossed over into like big boy land. So that's been an interesting change. But I think as a mom, the hardest thing that I would say that I do is finding the balance between working and doing what I feel God has called me to do, but also making sure that I, cultivate that relationship between me and my son, and also not worrying about it and understanding that if God has called me to this, that he didn't forget about my son in the process. Like he's also thinking about London and making opportunities for him to grow in this kind of different environment with what I do for a living.